Hey, good day, everybody. This is the first music theory video for intermediates. This can apply to guitar, it can apply to piano, any musical instrument that plays notes or a lot of notes at once, because we're going to cover chords. This is really not going to work well on a saxophone or a flute. However, if you decide to go to school and study music theory, you're still going to have to understand this concept at some point. Now, intermediate, this is assuming that you know the major scale, minor scale, the modes, all the chords, where they land. Okay, so you're gonna, at this point, we're hoping that you understand key signatures, how that works, hoping you understand how to build a minor chord and a major chord. Also a dominant, this the seven chord, the dominant, right? They call that a cadence in music theory. That's kind of what we're looking for at the intermediate stage. You've got a pretty good grip on everything that's in like standard theory, like playing in a major key or a minor key. Nothing too out of the box, in minor keys. Maybe you've got something in harmonic minor. You've seen some borrowed chords. You didn't quite know why, but there's some accidentals and things happening. Um, so, having said that, let's get started. What we're going to cover today is called a secondary chord. You could call it an altered chord too, depending on how you're thinking about it. We're going to kind of approach it mostly as being a secondary chord. Why? Well, here's kind of what we're looking for, that sound, that cadence, right? That finality that you're hearing there. Well, that doesn't just have to happen going from 5 to 1. Okay? You can make that happen anywhere in any key, but it's based off of the chords that already exist in that key. So, my favorite, anybody that watches the channel for a minute or two is going to figure out that my favorite key on a guitar is G. Why? Because it's easy. Unless you tune the guitar different, grab a capo, play an E major, A major. There's only so many keys that you can grab super easy on a guitar. And I just kind of, for whatever reason, gravitated towards G. Okay, so the 1 chord in G is G. 5 chord in G is D. Well, let's say, briefly, for a minute, you want to feel like you're in this key. Now we're on a B minor chord, which is the 3 chord of G. We want to we want to make that chord feel stronger. We're going to hit it a little harder. So, okay, that's not bad. That's a nice little chord progression. However, you can play the 5 of that chord before you get to the chord. What's that sound like? Well, let's check it out. Okay, that's a secondary chord. That chord that we just played is dominant of this. Listen to the language. It's the 5 or the dominant of the 3. Okay, and written, when you start doing like music theory stuff and you do they use Roman numerals, like the Roman numeral 3 in lowercase would mean like the 3 minor chord. Well, this guy would be written as the capital Roman numeral for 5, the big one, / baby Roman numerals 3, because it's the 5 of the 3. You didn't change keys. Now that chord's not in this key, but you didn't change keys. You just for a second pretend that that's your 1 chord and you grab its 5. Okay? Now, this is a hard concept for some people to wrap their head around because it's unexpected, it's strange, it's not in a major or minor key anymore. It's very can't think of the word for it right now, but it's abstract. It's very abstract. It's out of the normal thought process of what we would think of as music, because you're like, well, and yeah, I can grab the 3. Why wouldn't you? It's right there. But it sounds awesome, and you have some finality there, right? Now that gives you a lot of options. One of those options is that you could actually switch to B minor, but that's not why we're doing it today. Today we're just adding color to a chord progression that's already there. That's pretty common. You know, G to anything in the key of G is pretty common. Let's say now you want to go from 1 to 5. To 5, you know, you can do this because that belongs in that key anyway. We're going to do 5/5. So you're going to get 2 dominant chords in a row. Okay? What's that like? It's pretty cool. It gives it a little more finality, a little more push. And again, for a minute, you've got that cadence. But wait a minute, you got another one. So you can strengthen these moves, you know, because this got a very, that first one we covered, that's a nice chord progression. It's got a feeling. It's got its own life. But now, you've given it a different life, right? You've changed it just a little to kind of give it a new feeling. Now, what's a really fun one, though, is 5/4. Why do I say that one's fun? Because you're taking your 1 chord, altering it, and you're going to 4. Okay, what's that sound like? Let's throw the 5 in. So there you go. That gives you a sound. And that could be more of like, say you're coming out of your verse part, and I'm going to cross over into the songwriting briefly here. So you're coming out of your verse. Let's say your verse was just 1 and 4. Nice verse. Now we're going to do a little bridge out of that into the chorus, and we're going to give it a little... Okay, now you can, and that worked really cool for a chorus too. So you can go all over the place with these things, but as far as music theory is concerned, that's a borrowed chord. You're just borrowing briefly from your target's key. So my target originally was B minor. We're just borrowing briefly its 5 chord and throwing it in to G major. Okay, so that's called a secondary dominant. It could be called an altered chord too. I said that at the beginning. Why can it also be called that? Well, the 2 chord, right, is what is a fifth below the 5 chord. And that's the one that we altered, right? We took it from being a minor chord and we made it this guy to get there. And there's all kinds of like theory explanations for that. One of them is that you start here in this G, and for a second you think of it as the 4. It's 1, but for a minute we're gonna go, hey, you know what? That could be the 4 in another key, right? And all of a sudden, this A becomes a 5. And Then we go up to that D. So for a minute, right, you're in D major. Because you're like cooking on the 1 / in your head it's a 4, 5, 1, back to your original 1. Okay, so that's where you get this idea of altered, because you're still on a scale position. You're just altering what's already there to this other chord quality. So secondary is how it's mostly referred to in music theory. And as a quick little trick for guitarists, I think of it this way. And if you watch any of my other videos, you'll start to see that I think of everything as shapes, patterns, spacing. Like where is it from that thing? Okay. So if you're gonna resolve onto a chord that's on the 5th string, 5th, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 6 to the 5th, you're gonna resolve there. Then directly below it is where you make your dominant chord based off the 6th string. Makes that way easier, right? You don't have to go looking for it. You just know, made it, right? You can do it at any point, on the fly, whatever you want to do. The other trick is, say you're going to resolve to a bar chord starting from the 6th. G major again. I gotta really stop that. Then you go up a whole step and make your dominant on the 5th. You got your dominant starting from the 5th string up. So you hopefully by now, like especially for guitarists, you understand the shapes of dominants. You know, hopefully I'm not hitting you with like, what the hell does a dominant chord look like? These bar chord shapes are pretty common. Okay, but if you're resolving to the 6th string, especially anywhere down here where you can't, right? You can't just go down a string, because this is not a 7 string. We don't have that option. So that's like, well, where's the dominant from there? It is up a whole step on the 5th string. You make this, and then you're golden all over again. So let's say we wanted to do the 5 of the 2 off the 1. So we want to go 1 to 2, but we want to throw that 5 in there. Where would you go? Well, you know you can't go down that way. So we're going to go. So those are tricks for guitar. You can resolve down a 5th, down a 5th, or up a 4th with those secondary chords. You're gonna do awesome. Hopefully this will all make sense. This stuff's a little harder to explain to somebody has like, imagine you have, well, maybe you don't. Maybe you've never had a whole lot of experience with reading music or seeing any of this. It's going to be very foreign. So take your time, be patient with yourself. It'll start to make more sense. But yeah, 5 of your target chord for that long. You're thinking of it as though you're in its key while you're in the middle of playing in this other key. Have a good day. You're going to do awesome.